This is awesome. At this point, we already connected, make a link between our backend and our frontend, send it the contact form. And well, at this point, we are receiving the information, but it is time to get that information and actually send an email. Of course, I know we need the validations, we need to verify some things, show the errors or the messages to the user. We are going to do that class by class. But for now, we are going to get specifically focused on creating the email and sending it. We are going to use the log so we can visualize that and verify how it works. But of course, you are completely free to configure that using a third-party service for that, which is usually compatible with Laravel. We are not going to take time with that. We are going to focus in the code and in the specific content. So for that, we need to go to our command prompt once again. As we created our controller, we are going to create this time a mail. So we can use PHP artisan make mail. And the name of this specific mail is gonna be contacted message, essentially a message that someone contacted us. So we have contacted message, and we are going to pass a parameter which is the amp, meaning that this mailable is going to use markdown. So once we press enter, automatically we are going to see into our current structure the mail folder inside the app, and here is the contacted message. And additionally, as you may see, this is returning a view which is located on mail contacted message. So let's go there. We have this, of course, on views. There is mail and contacted message. This time, this is not JavaScript. This is not Vue. This is not inertia. This is just the regular blade, the regular components, because, well, we are sending the email. We are not interacting directly in the SPA. So let's to change this a little, basically the contents of this specific message. So we are going to say something like, hi there. We are going to say like, someone contacted you with a specific message. Someone contacted you with this message. Let's keep it simple. And then we are going to quote the actual message. So here we are going to use the quotation and say this is the message. And now let's say that, let's to remove this button, we don't need it. Maybe you want to get in touch using this shared email. And here we are going to put the actual email. Perfect. Thanks. This is the name of the application. We can preserve this as you prefer, or you can just remove that. Remember, basically this email is for you. You are receiving this email saying, hey, someone say this and share this specific email. So then you can just take that email and verify if it is correct or not. It makes sense for you to get in touch with that person and go ahead with that. This is essentially what we are going to do. Now, it means that we need to send the message and the email that we are receiving in our mailable to this specific view. And how can we do that? Well, we need to go to our contacted message, the mailable that we just created, and use two different properties for this. So as we are building here the markdown email, we have two different possibilities. We can send this, the markdown call, or essentially we can use, let's say, the magic properties here, and every public property that we have in this mailable is going to be available automatically into our message, basically in the email. So we have a public attribute, which is going to be, of course, the email. And similarly, we are going to have one for the message. Once we have this, that means that we need to receive them in the constructor, because to, well, create a contacted message, we need the email and the message that we received. So we have here the email and the message. Here it is. So we are just going to assign this. This email is equals to the actual email that we received here, and the same essentially for the message. Perfect. We already initialized the information, so that means that we are going to create the contacted message instance. We need to send the actual email and the message, and that is essentially the work that is going to do our controller. And then we have this information available, and we can show this here. So let's verify that. How can we do that? We can go to our web.php. So let's go there. Just to verify how it's going to look, we are going to create a route. It's going to be route get to access to this easily. And we are going to say that this is just a test. And this is going to call to a function where we are going to return that specific mailable. So return new, and the mailable is contacted message. And remember, this is going to need the email. So let's just say test@test.com and a message, just testing. Perfect. So let's import the definition of contacted message. This is just an example. This is not an actual functionality, but this is going to allow us to see how the actual email is going to look like. So we need to go to test. So let's go back to our project and let's go to test. Oops, it looks I have a typo here, a little error. Actually, I missed the colon here, of course. So let's go back and refresh. We have test just in case. And here it is, single page application portfolio is the name of our application. So we are saying, hi there. Someone contacted you with this message saying just testing. And maybe you want to get in touch using the shared email, which is test@test.com. So we already know how to create an instance of our mailable using this information. But of course, we are going to use this time the information that we received from the form of our single page application, from our portfolio. So I'm going to comment this. I'm going to leave this just a reference for you in future classes if you prefer. But now we need to go to our contact controller. So instead of doing the DD for this, we are just going to, well, create the actual mailable. So we are not just going to create a mailable. We are going to actually deliver this. We are going to send that. So we are going to use mail to, so we are going to specify a global to here, so we can use something from the configuration. We can create that in a few seconds. And let's use this something like mail that to address. This is not part of the regular configuration of Laravel, but we can add it into our configurations. And in the second parameter here, we are going to use the name that we can use in the global. So we have config once again, and following the same structure, mail to name. Now, the second parameter is going to define just the visual name, while the other one is going to define the email address where we are going to send this. Remember, this is going to be basically your email. You are receiving this email saying, hey, someone contacted you. And what we are going to send, well, we are going to call send, specifying that specific mailable that we have here. Of course, we don't need a return. It is just new. We don't need the semicolon here. And this is contacted message. Let's import the definition. We have here app mail contacted message. And this time we are going to use the information coming from the request. So we have request email and the same for the message, request message. Perfect. At this point, we are sending the email and then we just need to redirect the user back to the original location. So we have return, redirect, and we just need to go to the root location of our project, which is essentially here. At this point, we have everything. We are sending the email, but of course, we need now to configure two different things. First, the global to, and additionally, a global from, essentially where that emails come from to identify our application sending that email to us. So let's configure that. We need to go directly to config mail. Here it is. And essentially, we have a global from, and we need to create a global to. So let's modify this global to address. You can add some comments here if you prefer. And then we are going to say this is to, and essentially we are going to use the same structure that we had into our controller. So we have address and name, pretty consistent with this as well. Address and name. So the address is going to come from mail to address, and the same here, mail to name. Now, essentially, we need to configure 4 different things here in our environment. Remember, this method, this helper, is taking the information from our .env file. So we have mail from address, mail from name, mail to address, and mail to name. So let's copy them, and let's go now to our .env file. And we just check, we already have some of that information. We have the mail from address and the mail from name. So that means that we can remove those and leave it only with the mail to address. So here we are going to configure something different. We can use this if you prefer. It is just an example. We are not going to use and send an actual email. We are going to preserve this in the log. How are we going to preserve that in the log? Saying that the mail mailer is log. That means that the content of that specific email is going to be in the storage logs in the Laravel.log. Let's remove the contents here to make it clear. And now let's to configure the mail to address and the mail to name. So let's use something like your personal email at something.com, and the name is, for example, Juan, or any name that you prefer, of course. So this is configured now. That means that we are going to send the email always to this specific email address from this specific email address. Normally, this means that you need to configure this matching with the, for example, domain where you have hosting your application or something like that. This is something that you can research or ask me if you prefer some details, but there is a lot of information related to this to configure a third-party service like Mailgun or Amazon Web Services email service and all of that. So don't worry about it. There is a lot of information in the case that you actually need it. So once we have this, we can go and try how it goes. So let's go back to our actual project. Let's chat. So this is test@test.com. Testing, get in touch. Whoops, and it looks like we had an error. Of course, I completely missed to import the definition of mail. You can see how inertia is helping us a lot to debug the information and get the actual information. So we have Illuminate support facades mail. Here it is. And recently we already have the information of the definition for contact message. So let's try it again. We just need to close this and try to get in touch again. So it looks like nothing happened, but behind the scenes, the controller was actually executed, and that means that we should go to our Laravel log after the details of the error, and in the bottom you can see how we have the HTML of that specific error, say, hey, maybe you want to get in touch, and a little bit top we can go and get the text plain version of this specific email. Here you can see, hi there, someone contacted you with this message, testing, specifying this specific email. All of that. Let's try it again. Let's do save. I'm going to try with a different email, testing2, get in touch, already sent, and here it is. Once again, someone contacted you with these specific details, and of course with this specific email. Perfectly functional, and here we have the HTML version of this. Normally, this is the version that we already saw in our browser. So that means this is working, but of course you maybe realize two different things. The first one is that maybe we want to verify that this is an actual email just to be completely sure, and most importantly, we want to close the model and maybe show something like a success message saying thank you for contacting me, I will get in touch later, something like that. So we're going to work in that in the following classes of this section. See you there again.